Hey guys, welcome to VTTV. I'm Tim Avery. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you haven't come to my channel before, man, you guys want to check out this. I have a good dear friend of mine. We're going to be talking about photography. So photography is something that you're aspiring to do. If you want to know more about photography, I've got the right guy on here to share about photography, the ins and outs, some of the stories of how he's come up to do photography, what he's doing now in photography, maybe some of the struggles that you can have in photography. And also he's got a great YouTube channel for a resource. So you definitely want to stick around. Without further ado, I'm going to bring my good friend Todd Coons online here. He's ready to share his story. And so I want to get into this. So Todd, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Tim. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about photography. This is your wheelhouse, and I know you've got a lot to share on how to do photography, but I do want to kind of back up and just ask a couple questions for you, particularly because, sometimes people want to know, okay, how trustworthy is this person I'm going to listen to? So how long have you been doing photography?
I have been doing professional photography for about 35 years. I went to school, graduated in 1989. It blows my mind to even throw out dates like that. But yeah, I graduated with a degree in commercial photography in 1989, immediately started working and have been doing it ever since.
That's awesome, man. So I know you said you have taught photography in a period of your time. So can you talk a little bit about that?
So I graduated in 89. I was from Denver. I went to school in Ohio. I moved back to Denver to start my career. And in 2001, my wife and I really felt led to move to Ohio. And I don't really think the intent was to teach, but I called the school that I went to and saw, I was looking in to see if they hired like a part-time instructor because I thought I could maybe do a little part-time thing. And they hired me, but within 6 months, I was working full time there and also freelance photography outside of there. And I taught for 7 years before we ended up leaving Ohio.
That's awesome. So you got some good knowledge of photography, and you've
Uh,
done it, before the digital age of photography, now into, 30 from 35 millimeter photography now to like the more digital photography. Can you talk a little bit? Because my wife Donna has done photography some too, and she was always talking about, I was doing photography before the whole digital age. How's that changed some since doing 35 millimeters photography now to like digital? Is there something you have to be more careful of, more aware of, or less aware of doing the two different types?
well, I will tell you, I did start my career in the film days, and then the switch to digital. And I have to say, when I went to teach, this was not the intent, but I taught the 7 years that basically the industry switched to digital. When I started teaching, there was maybe one project that the students would do in 2 years that had anything to do with digital. Everything else was film. When I left 7 years later, there was only one class that taught film, and it was an elective. You didn't even have to take it. So looking back on it, I'll be honest with you, I think God put me in a place to learn digital that I would not have chosen probably on my own. I was in a college environment learning digital with everybody else as it switched over. And I shared an office with the Photoshop teacher. I mean, how perfect was that? To ask all those questions about Photoshop and digital. And so I was in the perfect place for that switchover. I am somebody who loved that switchover. Film is becoming very popular again. I have very little desire to go back and shoot film. Um, it is what it is. It's neat. I loved the dark room. I loved all that kind of stuff. But the digital is so much easier from a business standpoint. It's cheaper. You're not buying film. You're not paying for processing. And if I'm at a job, I can look at the screen and say, okay, I've got this photograph. I don't walk away hoping I got it. So,
There's no
um,
anxiety there. Yeah.
yeah, digital changed the industry significantly, good and bad, but I think mostly good.
Okay. That's awesome, man. Yeah. And so I guess I'd answer the question, which one would you prefer? So I guess you're pretty
Yeah.
answered that. Well, I mean, so you have all this history in photography and all this education and experience. I'm curious to see what made you want to do photography. Like, what made you fall into photography at a certain age? Like, you decide like one day is like, man, I really want to do photography because this happened. So what was that moment for you? You were like, I want to do photography for my life or as a career.
When I was a kid, early teenage years, we used to travel a lot as a family. And my dad had a 35 millimeter camera, and he would shoot slide film. Come home, we put them in the little carousels, and you'd project them up on a screen, and you'd watch all those slides. And so somewhere along the line, he'd put the camera in my hand and say, okay, you take a picture, and I started doing that and started loving it. And I think the very first photography class I ever took was probably junior high school. And I always tell people that the magic moment back in those days that triggers you to say, this is what I want to do for a living, is when you get in a dark room and you take that piece of paper and you put it in the developer and you rock the tray and you just watch your picture come up. And the first time that happened to me was probably when I'm like, this is what I want to do for a living. And I was probably 14, 15 maybe at that time. So eventually I buy my own camera, and I'm, going on these family vacations, taking my pictures with my camera, and it just snowballed from there.
That's amazing, man. I appreciate you sharing that. That's pretty cool because I know there's people who are excited about photography now, and they may look at photography as a lucrative business opportunity, to make photography, especially if they're looking at weddings, and they may have a particular eye and they see different things. They want to capture, the world around them. And I think that's great. But then there's also, because you guys, you have your experience of doing photography now. So you have your YouTube channel that you do. So what type of photography do you do nowadays? What's your photography niche?
Well, in terms of making money, I do a lot of advertising type stuff, product work. I shoot some real estate clients. There's a company up in Hendersonville that I go up there and work with the photographer up there. Sometimes they do catalog merchandising stuff, e-commerce type jobs. So I do a lot of that kind of stuff. Of course, on the YouTube channel, I will do photos that just inspire me to do. So sometimes that just, artwork type stuff. And I do a lot of stock photography, which could include anything. It could be, people at a coffee shop. It could be, I don't know, a sign on the side of the road. It could be a scenic. So I do a lot of different things. I definitely do some portrait type work. People will call me and do portraits. We're about to do our second year of Santa photos. We've got this professional Santa that comes over, and that's a lot of fun. And occasionally I'll do a wedding. I told you earlier that I don't have any weddings well, no, I have a wedding in October coming up, I think. I better make sure I know that. But I do some weddings, and we used to do a lot of weddings. So, I do a little bit of everything, I guess.
So what is more, I guess, passion driven for you? Like, what do you enjoy the most out of your photography? Like, what types of photography do you enjoy the most?
Yeah, yeah. I love doing product work in the studio.
Okay.
I do love that. But I will say over the last 20 years or so, like at the beginning of my career, I would have been content just to stay in the studio and never talk to a person. And I love the creation of the product scenes and things like that. But over the last 20 years, I've far more become a people person. So I love the jobs where I'm interacting with people. Weddings have their own goods and bads. I mean, it's a stressful day, it's a long day, but I love the interaction of the people part of it. So I love portraits. I love the weddings. I love getting out and talking to people because I would have never thought this at the beginning of my career, but I've become a people person. So, and my wife will, kind of kiddingly make fun of me. You're always a photographer. So as much as I love one area of it, I could shoot a wedding all day long, shoot some product stuff in the studio, and then the sunset's really nice, and I'll run down to the lake because I got to get a sunset photo. I just love taking pictures, so I'm always out doing it. And I'll do a little bit of everything. So I guess I have some favorites, but I love it all, I guess.
I got you, man. And I know that we've been talking about, photography, as a business. And I know that you guys are working on as this is kind of your livelihood. Can you talk a little bit about, because I know it's people who see, photography as a lucrative business, where I was wanting to go here just a while ago, but people see photography as a lucrative business. Can you kind of give some realism or bring some real reality of like how when you build your photography business, how sometimes it could be a struggle to get to a certain point that you may be looking for? Because I know some people who are watching this or want to know, it's like, hey, this guy's super passionate about photography. He's probably really making a lot of money, doing photography, which you probably are. I don't know, but can you talk a little bit about like how maybe some of the struggles that you and your wife have had, maybe going through and building your photography business, or some of the struggles of having like being let go or anything like that with photography, and then just giving maybe some hope to somebody who's aspiring to be a photographer, just give them some a reality. I wouldn't say like a reality check, but like just to kind of give them some good perspectives.
Right, right. You know, I think like any business,
Yeah,
not photography in general, running your own business has got challenges. So those challenges in the photography industry are certainly there. You know, educate yourself on what it is to be in business, how to manage your money, that kind of thing. Super, super important. I am a big believer, however, that the people that are successful are the people, and this is the way I say it, I hope it makes sense, are the people that get out and do it. If your passion is to be a photographer, then go do it. You're never going to be successful at it unless you get out and give it a try. So if that's what you want to do, go do it. Now, to be successful in photography these days, I don't, this sounds bad, but I don't think the bar has it been ever been lower to enter into photography. It's pretty easy to get in. Cameras these days are phenomenal. They do most of the work for you. You get the images into the computer and you can make all kinds of adjustments and fix things and make them look phenomenal. So it's not technically super hard to get in, but you've got to know how to navigate Instagram, and you got to be a people person and learn how to sell yourself and brand yourself. And so there are challenges. I think the people that probably thrive even better than most photographers are the ones that know how to navigate social media and get their name out there, but then also can create phenomenal photographs. Just because it's pretty easy to take a picture and fix it later, you know, the people that really know how to light things and pose people and do these little bit higher end things will stand out. But my advice is if that's your passion, then do it. You probably fail a couple times, but dust yourself off and get up and go again, and just keep going, because you can do it. You can make a good living in photography, and if it's what you love and are passionate about, you should do it.
that's awesome. And I know that was one of the things that kind of drove you to wanting to do your YouTube channel, because I mean there are so many different photographers that are out there that might be struggling or maybe trying to put up the how-tos of doing photography, and I know you're super passionate about that to the point where you're like, you know what, I think I have a voice here to be able to share some how to do photography. And I'm gonna bring up, just and let this play in the background. This is Todd Coons's YouTube channel, and you dedicate. I'm gonna let this be muted so while this is playing in the background. But can you talk to these guys and let them know why you decided to do this YouTube channel, and why you wanted to have a voice here, and what was your driving force of creating this YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story, and I'm almost embarrassed to say it like this, but I used to watch YouTube, and at some point while I was watching YouTube, I looked something up, and I was watching the channel, and super, super popular channel, but what they were saying was not accurate. And so, of course, I leave a comment like, "Hey, you don't know what you're talking about." And of course, you watch one of their videos, it leads you to another one. And I start watching these videos, and I'm like, these people don't really know what they're talking about. And the Lord literally spoke to me and said, well, at least that guy has a channel. He stepped out and started. You don't have a channel. And so I got convicted that, am I supposed to start a channel? And I literally spent 2 years talking myself out of starting a channel, because I don't know how to do the video part of it. I don't sound good. I don't look good. Nobody's going to want to watch me. But that desire to start a channel kept creeping back in, and so, like I said, about 2 years into trying to talk myself out of it, I finally started a channel. And part of the mindset was when I teach photography or when I share what I'm doing, I want to share it very accurately. So if anybody's watching my channel to learn photography, they're getting good information. I don't do a ton of tutorials on my channel. I do some, but I definitely pepper in why I'm doing what I do and the teaching part of it as I create my images. Like this one we're watching right now, I'm gonna have some lights set up and stuff, and I'll talk about why I set the light there and why I set the camera up the way I did, and I've just found that rather than try to do this whole teaching video, I just put in little bits of teaching along the way, and it's amazing the comments that I get. I will get people that will ask me, "How did you do this?" or "Thank you for sharing that. I never heard it discussed like that." So the comment section is amazing to me. It's like, wow, I really am reaching a few folks. So it's rewarding in that regard. I'm glad I started. I shouldn't have waited 2 years to get it started.
That's awesome, man. And I know there's people out here who do search YouTube and they try to find, you know, a strong voice or a right perspective, I should say, on how to do certain things. And so if you guys want to check out his channel, go to it's Todd Coons. Is that's your name, your YouTube channel?
Yep,
Or
yep. Just look up my name, you'll find it.
yeah, Todd Coons, and then find his YouTube channel, because I think there's some excellent resources there to help you understand photography, how to do photography. He's, like you said, he doesn't have a whole lot of how-tos, but at least give you a good perspective on how to do photography correctly. And I think that's kind of the idea of your channel, right, Todd?
Absolutely.
Because I know maybe another question somebody might have watching this is like, okay, if I'm an aspiring photographer, what would be some great gear to get started? Like, how would I get started with doing some photography? Because I know you're currently, I don't know if you're still at a camera retail shop that you work at, or maybe you do that part-time still, but I know you had some time doing that. So talk to these guys about maybe some startup gear, maybe something that you could kind of share as maybe some tips on that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one of the misperceptions is you've got to have all this expensive camera gear. And certainly camera gear can be expensive. You can spend a lot of money, but you don't really have to. There are, digital cameras where you could get in $400 or $500. I would not be opposed to buying used gear. When the world first went digital, every 6 months they were coming out with the latest, greatest camera body, and they were making significant upgrades every 6 months. Today, that doesn't seem to be as true. You could get a camera that's 10 years old that takes phenomenal photographs. So I guess I say that because used cameras is a great way to go. I would spend more money on lenses than I would a camera body, especially to get started. The lenses are more important by and large as far as getting a good quality image. But you could get into gear and get started for $1,000, maybe a little bit less if you find a good deal. One of the things that a lot of photographers will avoid is good lighting. They get a great camera and they kind of avoid the lighting. So invest in a little bit of lighting, learn how to use the lighting. Yeah, and good to go from there.
That's awesome, man. Appreciate you sharing those tips. Any other last tips that you might want to share with an aspiring photographer? Or
You know, like I said, just do it. If you're passionate about it and love it, get out and do it. I think one of the best ways to learn photography these days is to find somebody who's doing what you do. If they're in your town, call them up and see if you can work for them, even if it's for free. I will carry your light stands to a job and help you set up to work for free so that I can just learn from you. If they say no, find somebody else. I mean, it's just a matter of, joining forces with somebody who knows more than you do and can teach you. But if you're passionate about it, do it. You get knocked down, get back up and keep going, because you'll have failures and you just got to keep going. And I don't think that's a photography thing. I think if you want to open a coffee shop, find a way to make it happen and do it. Fear is a big thing. We could get into a whole conversation about fear, I suppose, but fear drives us to not do certain things. So overcome that, jump in, live your dreams. 5 years from now, if you're not supposed to be doing it, I truly believe your desires will change. And if that passion and desire is still there, just keep pushing forward. You will be successful.
I appreciate that, Todd. Thank you so much, man, for just sharing some of your insight and wisdom on photography.
Absolutely.
You've got another website that kind of showcases most of your work, right? Studio12online.com.
Yep, that is the official website. Shows off the portfolio and kind of who we are and what we do.
That's amazing, man. Well, thank you so much for your time to carve out and just kind of share a little bit more about what you do, who you are. And so looking forward to sharing more about what Todd does. So put in the comments below if you have any other questions, and I can fit those to Todd if you have any particular questions for Todd, or go to his YouTube channel and check out some of his resources there. Check out his website, Studio 12 Online. It'll be in the link below. So that way you have that as a resource. So Todd, thanks again, man, for coming on here and just share a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, Tim, I appreciate it.